How private equity turns your favorite food into slop. Now, I have heard of this happening. In fact, I literally have talked about this before. If you've ever gone to a restaurant, it feels like it's turning into like a cube, or it's turning into like modern, or it feels like it's trying to be made in such a way that if the restaurant disappeared overnight, you took away all the things inside of it, and you just created an entirely new thing there, like any new shop, like basically a building that is just on land. It's not meant to be branded in any way. Then that's kind of the private equity thing you're looking out for, because I think that's what they're doing. But we're gonna see. So lock in, lock in.
Think about the last 5 places that you ate at. There's a good chance almost all of them are owned by private equity.
What is the last 5 places I ate at? It'd probably be Burger King, Domino's, Pizza's Gas, and it's gonna be a hard thing. I have not eaten much fast food. No, 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 Wawa, and that's probably it. I can't think of anything else, but I think those are all owned by private equity if I had to guess.
But hold up, how? The place still looks the same, even at different locations, and it's not like you're just eating at fast food restaurants, right? Well, the thing is, it's not just places like Subway or Arby's. Even those new, smaller, independent-looking restaurants are now under the same private equity portfolio, so you'd have no idea if the place that you ate at last night is one of them. And it's not slowing down. Private equity has put $94 billion into restaurants over the last decade, but what's weird here is that restaurants should be one of the worst businesses on earth. They have 3% margins, 4.
I think I'm just taking a wild guess here. This is my guess. You can count me on this. I think the reason that it is that they're running these restaurants and they're hoping just to make a little bit of profit just because, you know, they want to make profit their business. But I think it's because the private equity owns the land, they own the buildings. So, and that's the best thing you can invest in. If you know anything about investing, I'm pretty sure land is like, in their eyes, when you treat land as like a limited resource and everyone has to like hunt for it, they essentially always win because they have the land in the end and they can always just sell the land back for like money somehow. I think that's what we're gonna get at here.
Out of 10 made zero profit last year, and over 8,000 shut down in just the last 6 months. So the more interesting question becomes, why do the smartest guys in finance keep buying them? Well, it's because
I actually could probably tell you why just from like my software background, because I know this. This is literally how startup culture works. This is probably a little bit different, but basically what a lot of these private equity firms do, and the video is probably going to talk about this, I'm yapping too much, but what they'll do is they have no real good way of measuring what's going to be like the next big pop-off thing, right? They don't know if it's going to be like, what's going to be the next DoorDash that's going to blow up, or what's going to be like, I can't even remember, things we don't know about, right? Things that are super hyped for like a week and then no one cares about them. And so what the investment strategy is they invest a ton of money into a bunch of stuff, and like the top 0.01% of their investments pays for everything else. That's how it works in startup culture. I would be very unsurprised if that's how it works here too.
they're not really buying restaurants. What they're really buying is something attached to them that pays them whether you eat there or not. So you can imagine what this is doing to the industry when the last thing that this depends on is making the food better. So I went through their portfolios, their deals, and even a 20-page guide written by the lawyers who invented this whole thing. And sure, I found the actual reason why eating out feels like an expensive scam now, but then I realized along the way that restaurants are only the start of it. And if nothing changes, we don't just lose the last rare places where somebody still gives a shit. Everywhere is about to look, feel, and get treated like it's built to die. But by the end, I'll show you what you can actually do about all of this.
Bro, that's the thing. I'm not surprised with this, but that is crazy that private equity is doing it to everything, because it's even happening on YouTube. Like, think about channels you really love, like Veritasium. I used to like Veritasium a lot, and like their newer videos are still good, but you can kind of tell they were bought by private equity. It's not the guy anymore. It's like two other guys, and they're charming, they're fine hosts or whatever, but it's just different. You know, I would not be surprised if this private equity thing just kind of leeches its hands into everything that the US has a big investment into. I mean, I'm sure private equity is a big thing elsewhere, but I know this is probably like a massive like US problem. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens with everything. I don't really know the solution though, because at what point do the private equity firms start like eating each other up? Like, at what point Do you have a private equity firm whose specialty is making private equity firms and buying them up? At what point is the entire economy just a big old Ponzi scheme? That's what I'm wondering. Because I feel like that could happen, but I've already paused like twice. I need to lock in.
So I think a lot of you are feeling how eating out stopped being worth it. Everybody wants to blame inflation for this, and sure, that's definitely a part of it. But once you see this document, you'll see that that's barely part of it. But still, something doesn't make sense. Everybody already knows that restaurants are one of the worst businesses to be in. Sorry, I'm trying to get this on. So then why is private equity buying every single one? And the reason why I'm putting this on is, let's say I run a private equity fund. And let's call it scratch that, Hungry Stone Capital. Rich people handed me their money, and as always, my job is to turn that into more. Buy something like in healthcare, manufacturing, logistics, make it worth way more, boost up the numbers, and then sell it within 5 to 7 years. But the clock, or should I say my boss yelling at my ass, starts the day the money lands. But you know, I don't want to be like those other private equity guys. Invest in the same boring industries. I want to invest in something fun. That's something I actually like food. But if I didn't want to get yelled at by head boss and not piss away everyone's money, I was gonna have to do a little bit of research. So let's take a look at a random restaurant. Wait, hold on. You're telling me that food gets 28 to 32% of everything it takes in? Staff eats another 25 to 30? And all of this is without considering rent, power, insurance, or equipment? What the hell are these margins? Okay, if I add that up, in a good year, that's like barely anything. And in a bad year, that's like nothing. No wonder that 4 out of 10 restaurant operators made no profit at all last year. You know what? Screw this. Why would I, as Hungry Stone Capital, invest in this? I might as well just buy another hospital or something. But wait.
Bro, that's the fricked up thing. That's what I was saying earlier. They're not just doing it with the freaking restaurants. The hospitals is ridiculous. Because restaurants, I mean, ultimately the stakes aren't like that high. Like there's a little bit like to be said about culture preservation when it comes to not, doing private equity with restaurants. With hospitals, the stakes are always high. You don't want to do that crap with hospitals. You need high quality hospitals. That's freaked up. Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just want to say quickly, if you are enjoying the video whatsoever, hit the subscribe button down below. And it would mean the world to me if you would comment, like, do whatever you want, whatever you see fit for the video. Let me know your thoughts, and especially hit that follow button on Twitch. The link will be in the description. I want to stream, but it's very difficult streaming to no viewers. So if you'd like to come out and pop out next time, please be my guest. Pop out. I would love to have you.
Hold on here. You're telling me that between 2014 and 2024, private equity firms have already put $94.5 billion into bars and restaurants? Okay, that's not something I can ignore. You can say what you want in private equity, but when it comes to making money, none of us can call us dumb on that. And my intuition is right, because after weeks of research, what I found is that the real investment isn't buying restaurants. What you're really after is something other than the restaurant that you walk into. Okay, so Mr. Boston Investors, how Hungry Stone Capital is going to turn this notoriously terrible business into an infinite money glitch is with 3 different tricks. Let's take a Subway restaurant. Yeah. Remember those? I don't know who the f eats at one anymore, but anyways, almost every Subway belonged to a franchisee. Nodding, yep, we already know that, whatever. So the first trick here is we don't really want his store. What we really want is his cash register. Because obviously if we get a cut from his shitty margins, that's not really gonna be worth it. What I want instead is access to 8% of his gross revenue, then another 4.5% for advertising. So 12.5% of money is gone before he's touched bread, meat, rent, power, or a single hour of staff. And so the trick here is to buy and collect the fee instead of the shop. So even if the restaurant has the worst year of his life, we still get paid. So with this first trick, we make his margins his problem, not ours. And suddenly the worst business in the world starts looking pretty good. But that trick isn't enough. We're Hungry Stone Capital here, and we want great investment opportunities, which leads me to my second trick. And what's this, you ask? Well, Subway was already bought in 2023 by another private equity firm, Roark Capital. They beat us to it. But what Roark did to make the deal happen is they saw all this money coming in from 18,000 sandwich shops every week. So they went to their investors and said, lend us billions now, $5.7 billion to be exact, and we'll pay you back out of it every quarter for the next 30 years. So they didn't just collect the restaurant fees like in the first trick, but they turned every future sandwich into a payment they could sell to investors today like a bond. And I was like, God damn it, how did I not think of this genius plan? But come to find out, this is actually a whole ass playbook that's already been established to squeeze as much money out of restaurants you invest in. This is a how-to guide from the same legendary lawyers who set this up the first time back in 2006 when 3 private equity firms bought Dunkin' Donuts and immediately borrowed against every coffee that it would ever sell. A couple of things stood out. First, they explained what to look for, and it says right here that franchisee businesses are particularly well suited because royalties calculated as a fixed percentage of franchisee gross sales. Okay, you know what? That. What it's straight up saying is we like restaurant fees because the guy running the store can be losing money and it doesn't touch our payment. So we already covered that in the first trick, but the rest of the 20 pages is just how to protect that payment. Like putting the restaurant into a separate company that only exists to hold them. So if the whole company goes bankrupt, the investors still get paid first, plus a load of other stuff that we don't really have time to get into. But by doing this, we get to borrow against the restaurant chain's future sales while we keep the cash and the restaurant chain keeps the debt. So now
they're borrowing against future sales? They're borrowing against sales that haven't even happened yet? Isn't this what's happening in computing? That's freaking up computer prices? They're buying things that don't exist yet. Well, in this case, they're borrowing against things that don't exist yet. I mean, I guess that's how like hype marketing works. I guess that's why AI is like such a big thing, because they're just paying their employees with stocks, which the stocks are high because it's like a hype stock or whatever. But that's ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie, I did not get what the leveraged buyout thing is. And the fees like aren't that ridiculous. Well, I mean, it is ridiculous, but it's not that surprising. I think that's how like most of these things sort of go when you have like an evil corporate over your head. They just take money before you're even in the equation. But that is wild.
Now think about that, how that changes the restaurant. Now with the already thin margin on top of all the money that's gonna now start going to us, the investors, things like more staff, fixing the fryer that's been broken since March, or like, you know, improving the food or whatever, never is gonna come back up once. So now, not only will the fees be coming in every single week with this second trick for us, we can sell that fee to investors for billions up front. So not that bad for the shittiest business to be in. Except guys, before you leave, there is one last thing I haven't even told you about, and it's what turns us into the best business to be in. The third trick is to sell the building itself in the ground that it stands on, because the real money in a restaurant is not the restaurant, it's the property underneath it, which is
That's what I was saying at the beginning of the video. This is the part that doesn't surprise me, because if you have the whole restaurant, you know, the food, the sales, all that stuff, if you can stay afloat, as long as you're not losing that much money, if you own the land, you're still kind of making money, because for some reason in America, land always appreciates. I don't know how it works exactly, but it just always happens. I mean, I'm sure it's crashed before, but like if you own the land, you're chilling. Like you could demolish the Red Lobster it's on and build. Well, honestly, you don't even need to demolish the building. You could just put a freaking Red Robin's in there. I mean, as they all become sort of the same restaurant, you can just interchange all of them. It's kind of fricked up.
It's exactly what Golden Gate Capital did when they bought Red Lobster for $2.1 billion in 2014. They almost immediately sold the property under roughly 500 stores for $1.5 billion. Then they made Red Lobster pay rent on the buildings that it used to own, often above market rate, and 10 years later, the chain was handing over more than $190 million a year just to sit in its own restaurants. And
wait, that's fricked up. It's not even what I was saying. They're not even just holding the land so that they can make it money later, or like have the safety of the land. They bought the restaurants that previously owned the land, purchased the land, or I guess they kind of already owned it, and now the franchisees are renting the land. They don't even get to own the land the building's on. So they're double freaking the franchisees. Plus, they're doing it above market rate. Like he just said, they're doing it above market rate too, which is ridiculous because rent is already insanely high. It's like it's no surprise to me, given everything that he said so far, that food quality is not improving and it's getting worse or whatever, and everything's getting more generic. But it's honestly surprising me that these places are even in business. I don't know how. Because I know there are some franchises that are like still very popular, and they are not popular. I mean, they're very successful for the franchisee. Like I think Chick-fil-A's are usually still really successful. I think they're really exclusive, but like, are they just like more moral about this? I doubt it. It's a business at the end of the day. That would be interesting to figure out why some are different. Some are more, still like profitable for the people that own them.
And surprise, surprise, in May 2024, Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy. But wait, before you get scared, by then, remember, that's not our problem. Because by then, we've already made all the money. So it seems like I was joking, but the thing is, none of that was even really that much of a bit. Yes, Hungry Stone Capital is fake as shit, and reality is restaurants are still a terrible business, but what you just saw is that private equity with 3 Tricks have been able to turn it into one of the best to invest in. But what this is currently doing to the restaurant industry is a different story. Because when incentives dictate behavior, it's pretty obvious now why the focus won't be on dumb stuff like, making the food better, but instead the focus becomes what's the most we can charge where people won't leave. And so when the wrong incentives can produce these wrong results, what's also important is having the tools that helps you point the right way. And that's exactly.
Before, I think this is the sponsor segment. I didn't even mean to pause it here. But before we get into that part, I did want to point out what he just said, where it was like when the wrong incentives produce the wrong results, like how it's currently doing. I actually want you guys to think about this, because I don't remember the exact wording, but I think it's like a thought piece from some philosopher or whatever. And he was like, it's incorrect to say that a system producing its results is acting improperly. That is just the system working. If you don't like the results, then the system isn't broken, it's just the wrong way. So like the idea in here would be like, well, this isn't the system malfunctioning. It's not like these restaurants getting lower quality or more generic or having really hard time staying afloat is a problem with the system. It's just that the system is set up to frick them in these ways that's causing the behavior. And I think that's a very important distinction, because they're doing this really on purpose. Like, it's not like they're trying to, by the grace of themselves, uphold these businesses and give them all these benefits. No, what's happening is they're trying to make money, and they're fricking them hard while doing it. So I don't think it's exactly right to say that. I don't, not to say that's what the video creator was saying. I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's an interesting thought experiment. You could apply this in a lot of different areas.
So let's start with Roark, since we just talked about it and how they own Subway. And it makes sense that they're one of the biggest and the OGs in the space, because they really do have a monopoly from morning to dinner. Like, look here along with me. Just morning alone, their lineup is crazy, from Dunkin' Coffee, Auntie Anne's, and Cinnabon at the mall, which, by the way, if you're eating a Cinnabon for breakfast,
Auntie Anne's? Is it not Auntie Anne's? It has to be Auntie Anne's, right? There's no freaking way it's Auntie Anne's. It's definitely Auntie Anne's, bro.
I already know what I would call you. But once you wipe that cream off your face and we go to lunch, they even have Subway, Jimmy John's. And finally, with dinner, they have everything from Arby's, Sonic, Carl's Jr., Hardee's, Culver's, and Buffalo Wild Wings. Oh, and even dessert and snacks like Baskin Robbins, Carvel, and Jamba. So all these brands roughly have 109,000 locations across 121 countries, and they're managing about $41 billion in its portfolio. But remember, private equity investment in restaurants have been a thing since the 80s, so they're also not the only one. Our favorite private equity firm, Blackstone, bought Jersey Mike's in January 2025 at a valuation around $8 billion after buying Tropical Smoothie Cafe for about $2 billion a year before. TriArtisan held big stakes in TGI Fridays and Hooters, and even though both eventually went bankrupt, earlier this year, they just bought Denny's. And Long Range Capital just bought Pizza Hut for $1.5 billion. But the point is, this is just the surface. Let's be real for a second. Does any of that actually change anything for you? Because if the food is still good and the price is still fair, then who cares who owns it? And this is where we have to go back to Subway, because they once had the most famous price in fast food, right? The $5 footlong. And call me a bot, but I love that.
Bro, that is true. I don't know how much this has got to do with private equity. I'm sure he's going to get to it. I need to stop interrupting the video. But Subway, I think, might have done the funniest short-term thing ever with the $5 footlong. And then, like, I don't know what happened. He's probably going to explain it. But, like, then you just can't do the $5 footlong anymore. No one wants to eat there because freaking they're used to the amazing price. I think a footlong, to be fair, a meal is like $13 and you get a drink and a sub. So, and you get chips or 2 cookies. And I'm a fat frick, so I always get the 2 cookies. That wasn't important. I just need to click back in the video.
It was the reason that little fat ass Gen in the 2010s was eating Subway every single week. But I actually just went to a Subway recently, and that same sandwich now is $12.98 with tax plus a tip prompt on the screen. And this is happening everywhere. Now again, the normal explanation is inflation. Everything is getting more expensive, so the chains are passing it down to us like every other industry is really doing. And that's not wrong, except it also doesn't really make sense when you follow where the money ended up. Because Subway is dying. They've gone from more than 27,000 American stores down to 18,773, and they're losing 600 to 700 more every year. Remember, Roark, private equity, makes his
600 to 700 more. 6, 7, 6, 7.
money off a cut of gross revenue. So you would think that fewer stores would mean fewer profits, right? But no, its profits went from $15 million in 2023 to $397 million in 2024 to $688 million last year. So what this means is that they're now making 45 times more money while the company itself is falling apart around them. So naturally, where is this all coming from?
That's so insane. They're making more money, but the companies are somehow not. Well, no, I guess that means the private equity firm is making more money. That's ridiculous. They're literally milking like a dead horse. Not milking a dead horse. I guess milking a dead cow. I don't freaking know. That's insane.
And it was something I couldn't figure out after extensive research until I found this. All credit to Restaurant Business who went digging through the filings going back to 2015, and there are 3 answers and all of them takes up a bigger share of this overall pie. The first is they cut costs, which you already know private equity does very aggressively. The second is that Subway used to pay regional agents a slice of that royalty money to go out and sell more stores. But Roark ended up pulling that in-house, so now they're driving a lot of revenue through that. And the third and most important is the shopping, because franchisees can't buy their own bread and meat wherever he wants, but instead they have to buy from suppliers that Roark approves and picks. And turns out those suppliers pay Roark for that exact privilege. So the more that franchisee spends on ingredients, the more Roark makes, on top of the 8% already gone off his revenue. So when you now look at the bigger picture,
bruh, that is literally evil genius. So what they've done, they've taken this stores, right? Theoretically, they used to own the land they were on. They owned like everything about the store. I'm guessing they used to be able to purchase from wherever they wanted. And now the owner, the private equity, owns the land. So the store owner now has to rent the land. That's an extra cost. And now they can't even choose where they have to buy from. They have to buy from specific people, which is going to inevitably give them higher price because, I mean, you know, they're literally circumventing like them going to someone cheaper, right? You can't get someone cheaper because you signed the deal to be franchised by the private equity firm. So now you have to buy from them. So they're freaking them with the land and the resources. How are these places staying afloat? It's honestly beyond me.
Yes, royalty income may have fell 10% because these stores have closed, but total revenue only dropped 4.8 because the shopping has filled a big part of that gap. And it's exactly how last year they came out to $688 million of profit on $925 million of revenue, roughly 74 cents of every dollar, which is pretty crazy. But I'm gonna keep being real with you because look, I love food. Call me a slob, but my general rule is that as long as the food is still good, I'll happily pay more. So is it? Well, that depends on a few things. Because remember, every time the franchisee buys supplies, Roark takes a slice now. So if that's the case, he wants to spend as little as possible and Roark wants him spending as much as possible. And if only one of them gets to pick the supplier, so to answer if and why the prices are going up, the question is, who is that supplier? We did a whole video on this earlier this year, but there's a company called Sysco that handles roughly 17% of everything eaten in an American restaurant. They even have an entire division built just to supply chain restaurants with not just ingredients, but finished food, and both Arby's and Subway are their customers. Now you might see the connection. Both of those are Roark. And now the picture becomes clear. The franchisee saves on staff because now reheating some pre-packaged bag takes a lot fewer hands than cooking. That's why you probably notice there's way less staff at these restaurants now. Roark cares about its slice of the supplies and sales, and the investors who lent that $5.7 billion back in 2023 get exactly the predictable payment that they were promised. So everybody involved in that party is happy because they're now making more money and getting steady cash flow. But to answer what we started with, if the food is still good, if the price is still fair, again, let's just say that nobody in this entire chain gets paid more if the food or price is any good. So the reality is private equity never really had to tell anyone explicitly to make the sandwich worse. They just reworked the incentives to make it so the franchisees couldn't afford to make it good or only had the options to buy pre-cooked slop. And you can...
That's what I was talking about earlier with the system. The system may not be designed, or the system is in a way designed to maximize profits and is doing exactly that. It's just so happens that, you know, the poorer quality food is a direct result of the profits going down or going up. But that is ridiculous though, because the whole time I was thinking the franchisee owners are losing out on every time. Every time I was thinking the franchisee owners were losing out at every turn, right? But it turns out that with what he was just saying, the franchisee owners are actually also benefiting because they're not paying as many like individuals, which brings me back to a thought I've always had. If the biggest, most expensive resource you can have is like a human being, right? Like buying their time, like paying a worker to make this stuff or whatever. And so you do everything you can to have as few workers. Like what's going to happen when you've cut out so many workers that people have no money in to buy your product? Like at what point do they start cannibalizing their own base? Like I get that remote work is a big thing and like America's economy is probably dedicated so much into like these remote jobs or like software, these like I don't know what it's called. I think it's like third ring industry or something. It's like products that are made to help make other products. Like it's not even related to anything close to the ground. Like is what is happening, like America is just being pushed further out of the industrial ring and like the industry is just being pushed to other countries where like human labor is less valuable and they're doing like crazy thing. That's my guess. I don't really know, because that's like really serious human rights violation, so I don't want to like misspeak or anything, but I think that might actually be what's happening, which is kind of fricked up. Not kind of, it is totally fricked up. That's wild.
See it exactly in the numbers. Chain restaurant sales grew 3% last year, while menu prices went up 3.8%. So the money is being made not by selling more food, but by selling less for more money. So by now, the answer seems obvious. Again, or the other people watching, if you care so damn much, just stop eating at these places. I mean, honestly, valid. If it was that easy, I could just end the video here, but the more I looked into it, the more I started seeing how this isn't just about restaurants getting worse. It might be hard to put into words, but I know you definitely feel it. But what's clear now is that if nothing changes, that feeling is coming for places that matter a lot more than your next lunch. But so you can understand what I mean, let's actually walk through the options that you have right now, where you can still go. Because there's two main options. The first option is to skip the big chains and the drive-thru, right? Go somewhere newer, somewhere smaller, somewhere that actually looks like some mom and pop owns it. Okay, perfect. Somewhere like Dave's Hot Chicken that started in 2017 with 4 friends at a parking lot in East Hollywood. Oh, well, yeah, Roark bought a majority stake in June 2025 for about $1 billion. But what this reveals here is like a deeper reason why they're doing this. Look at how Roark describes this restaurant on their own website. It says street style artwork, urban industrial finishes in neon signage. That's like the formula for like the most millennial portfolio of restaurants. But that's exactly the point. They know that aesthetic will probably be like the last thing that people would assume to be private equity owned. Or at least I do. But to be fair, since it does seem like I'm just being overly critical, it doesn't always end badly. Roark did buy McAllister's Deli back in 2000.
No. Before we move on from Dave's Hot Chicken, people actually do say Dave's Hot Chicken got worse. Apparently, like 2022, 2023, Dave's Hot Chicken was very freaking good. But then recently, 2025, I think is when people say it started getting bad, which I think works out with this video where they got like the steak and it started getting worse and worse. I actually do believe that. I never even had Dave's Hot Chicken, which is kind of sad, but that is crazy. That is very true. You don't think a place is owned by private equity, but it very well could be. They're very deceptive about it. Like they've started to not only own the places that are super obvious, but they own the places that aren't obvious either. It's wild.
2005, and it's not like I went to it before private equity, but since then they have grown at a 530% and now worth $1 billion. So you can see why even these more independent restaurants are even deciding to go with private equity, because clearly there are some results that they're driving with it. But I guess what is scary is that what seems like that cool, hip, independent place with the good branding is now also owned by private equity too. So now this leads me to like the other option you have, which is forget anything that's remotely a chain and just go to like that small mom and pop with like the sticky menus, and the kid is either on his iPad or just doing homework at one of the tables. You know the food is about to be good. And yes, that's exactly
right, bro. You know, if it's owned by a small family or whatever, and they just got their kid doing their homework or on an iPad in one of the chairs up front, you know the food's about to be good. It doesn't matter. I don't know why it is that way, but it just is.
Still the solution, but there's also a problem with this, because private equity doesn't just impact the restaurants that they buy, but the whole entire industry. Because independent restaurants like this still have to buy their food from everywhere, and for decades most of them have been going to this supplier called Restaurant Depot. They have like 166 warehouses across 35 states serving more than 725,000 independent operators, and they were pretty important.
Can you just go to this place? I mean, I'm pretty sure where this is going is he's about to say that this crud shut down, or like the prices went up to compete, or not to compete, but because Sysco is controlling the other things, and like now they're just raising the prices or whatever. Can you just go here? That'd be kind of funny to get like a metric crate of like non-perishable food. Like, can I get like a crate of, I don't know, like freaking, what's something non-perishable that'd be good? I don't know. You get what I'm saying, though. Can you just buy like a massive crate of stuff and then have savings? They probably wouldn't let you. I'm not gonna lie.
Because they were one of the biggest reasons your local spot was able to compete with these big chains on price. But then on 30th of March, not private equity, but Sysco agreed to buy it for $29.1 billion. And I think you can read between the lines, but as we covered, Sysco does have these relationships with private equity backed restaurants. So I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the mom and pop is still the answer. But the point is, time may be running out on how long these sorts of restaurants can even survive.
So he's basically saying, without trying to actually say it, even without being owned by private equity, they're still forced to use the same suppliers, and thus are kind of still using the same like garbage ingredients or whatever. That's fricked up. I understand why he didn't want to say that, because that's bleak. That is kind of bleak.
And as I was piecing all this together, that's when it kind of started making sense. This feeling that I've been feeling and others have been feeling before making this video, and why it's became a lot more clear. Because when I went back to Roark's website to double check something, what I started seeing is how none of this is just about restaurants. From your gyms like Anytime Fitness or Orange Theory, or your massage, to your oil change and your body shop, to the people who clean your house or help you move into it, and now even your kids' preschools. And that's when I realized that this feeling is a feeling we
private equities buy schools? That's so fricked up. That's so insane. I mean, like, holy crap. That's ridiculous. How are you gonna price gouge new families? It's times like these where people wonder, like, why is the birth rate going down? Why don't the newer generations want to have children? They do. They can't afford that crud. I wouldn't be surprised if they're price gouging all that garbage. Probably not helping at all. Holy frick.
Feel, because almost everything is slowly turning into the same thing. And just to confirm, not the only one, I went to the one website that could, Reddit. Someone posted a thread this month asking why every one of these places feels the same. From its cleanliness, modern vibe, and this feeling that it's completely dead inside. Soulless, and almost 1,000 other people agreed. The original poster said that he walked into a restaurant, felt this thing that was off before he even ordered, and as he sat down and waited, Googled the owner on his phone right here at the table and found private equity. Now, the boring answer is why your corporate office to even your restaurants are now looking the same is because building one design 1,000 times is a lot more scalable and cheaper. But the best way to describe why we feel this way is because these rooms just feel like it's built to die. And again, this isn't like hard research like we always do, so you guys can tell me in the comments, but I feel like it wasn't always like that. Because think about like the hometown that you grew up in. There's like a Pizza Hut.
No, it's this is literally perfect frame to stop on. This is exactly what I was going to talk about. You can't do this crud with a building anymore, because even though I don't really get why Pizza Hut had this sort of building, like thinking about it logically, I don't know like what it's supposed to be referencing. It was always cool. You would never ever see this anymore. I think other restaurants tried to do similar things, and all of them just kind of converted to like sleek cubic boxes. And it fricks with you a little bit in the head, right? Because for me, I was always freaking with Taco Bell. I like Taco Bell a lot. And they recently moved to this like modern sleek design, and I actually kind of like it. Like I think it looks pretty good, but you can still obviously tell they're going for that like cubic box building so that they can easily sell whenever the time comes, right? It's kind of fricked up. It's very sad in a way. It definitely takes a lot of life out of everything.
Maybe ended up closing, then became a law office, and then maybe even something else, but it still kind of looked like Pizza Hut for the next 20 years. But now there isn't really much of like this internal identity anymore. Everything from even the logos themselves to the menu feels like a gray box. It's completely devoid of personality, and I think it's because why invest in personality? Because if the plan all along is to hold something for 5 to 7 years and then sell the land out from it, under it, anyways. It's sad to say, but it's like personality and soul is a line item that doesn't really make financial sense anymore. So this all leads to what's actually left. Well, at least for now.
Here, before the conclusion of the video, I do want to add, interestingly enough, I obviously can't predict the future. I think this could potentially lead to like an upbringing in how much value people are willing to pay for authenticity. Because I have seen, even with people I know in real life, like, you care a lot about the prices when it comes to like McDonald's or like Taco Bell or Burger King or like these places. Like, if you feel like you got scammed out of your money, you're gonna hate that a lot, right? But if you feel like you're gonna want to use the app, right? You're gonna want to get the best deal you can. But you don't really care if like the local shop has an app, right? You don't care if you have to pay a little extra. I think that might come back a little bit. But the thing I do fear is that if private equity owns, you know, the high tier, obviously private equity ones, and they own the mid tier, like it's hard to tell, and then they even own the low tier, like the mom and pop shops that you really would think aren't private equity, but they are. I think it might lead to cynicism. So I don't know actually if authenticity will be valued like it should be. But I do think, at least when it comes to like the creator space, I think it is valued a lot. Because I can't, for me, like even a high quality video like Veritasium, with the knowledge that it is a private equity YouTube channel, it makes me not want to watch it. It makes me not trust them as much. Because I know the money is there. There's not passion behind it. They're probably going to shut the YouTube channel down in like 5 years, if I had to guess. But I don't know. I think authenticity will just increase in value, or like in how much people are willing to pay for it, essentially. And like all industries.
I don't just have like this ready-made list that tells you which restaurants are family owned or bought out by private equity, but damn, maybe y'all can let me in the comments if you would like for us to build out that app. But if we're gonna be real, even if that app existed tomorrow, I don't think it would fix anything. But what will, at the end of the day, is your choice. Every trick that I discussed in this video, from the fees, the loans, the land, all of it pays out if you keep walking in. And most often, the choice that you make is you walk into whatever is closest, cheapest, and open. There's a reason these restaurants are still seeing record profits while the sandwiches get smaller, the prices become higher, because for decades, what they've really mastered, and especially now, is the actual product, which is convenience. So if you are that same person that will click off this,
that is true. And it kind of sucks because on an individual level, you feel like none of your choices matter. They actually do, kind of, because a lot of the time it's these convenience businesses that'll really get you. Like it's like the thing with the frog in the pot, right? They just turn the heat up, and by the time the water's boiling, the frog can't jump anymore because it's too hot. That's pretty much what happens, I think.
Second you see AI slop on YouTube, then put your money where your mouth is, walk the extra 5 minutes, pay the extra $3, and go where the person who cooked it actually gives a shit if you are gonna be true to your principles. For me, that's a local Middle Eastern place on my street that will always call me Habibi, and the Japanese place where the Asian uncle will always hit me with the irashaimase. And like I discussed, you need to do this.
That's what I was talking about earlier with the YouTube channel, or something else I wanted to bring up with authenticity that relates to this. It's like if you see an AI generated thumbnail on YouTube, I don't think AI generated stuff, thumbnails and stuff like that on YouTube does well. I unfortunately AI generated scripts do well. I'm not here to break your guys' hearts. If you don't pay attention too closely, it might be hard to tell, but there are a lot of people using AI scripts, or like they use AI to refine their scripts and it's really obvious, and their videos still do well. So I do worry that it's even going to creep into YouTube the same way like the suppliers did the thing. Because you see, remember how it was like the small mom and pop shops still have to go through Cisco now because the other suppliers sort of had to raise their prices or whatever the frick. I think that's how it went. It's kind of the same thing with YouTube, even though there's not like an explicit you must do this, but in a need to feel like you're competitive with uploading times or like whatever your perception of what the algorithm is, people will start to use AI scripts and AI in different ways that they think is going to save them time. Now, me personally, I don't frick with using AI when it comes to content creation. I don't frick with that crud at all. I haven't seen a good use of it at all, to be honest. But there are a lot of people who are willing to bend at least their scripts for it because you can't tell until it's too late, like halfway into the video, and at that point you're already invested. And that's what he's talking what he's talking about comes into play. Like if you hear AI in the script, even if the video is the most interesting thing ever, if you don't frick with that, you have to click off the video. You have to go and watch something that doesn't have it, or at least you don't think has it, and don't click on AI thumbnails. It's kind of the same thing with like AI memes, but I don't know if memes are exactly the same level of serious. That's really up to you to decide. I mean, I don't usually like AI memes anyways, so. But yeah, I'll just let the video finish. I'm yapping for too long.
Because there's billions riding on these sorts of stores closing. But now that you learned a little bit more of how money and power works, what's great is that now you get to make choices that ignorance before couldn't afford. But now that also becomes your responsibility, because now the next question only you watching can answer for your next lunch is, who do I want to pay when I walk in here? So like I've said, I love food, and I'll be going even deeper into this issue next week on my newsletter in the video description. But if you haven't seen my last video that I mentioned on how a few suppliers like Cisco took over restaurants.
All right, W video. Everything, the video was extremely well put together. It seemed really well researched too. This was a good video. I like the way he brought it all together at the end, because there's not really a good way any individual can do anything about this. Like at the end of the day, it's up to the policymakers and stuff. But the one thing that the individual can do, just stop eating out. Stop eating at these convenience places that do all these things. It'll hurt their bottom line, even in like a minuscule way. But yeah, no, W video, very interesting. We might watch this next one. It might come up because I am very interested. Though I don't frick with calling things slop bowls in a negative light, because I like when food is slop in a bowl, but that just might be me. But anyway, yeah, W video. Check out Jen, bro. He knows what's up. Hey, thanks for watching the video. You made it to the end, so that means I hope you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, you should show that you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you like, what do you want to see next. I'll watch videos if you have them, or just really anything. And of course, the most important thing, I was going to ask it, hit that subscribe button. I know you can see it. It probably glowed when I just said that. And the second most important thing, go in my description, hit that little Twitch link. Follow me up on Twitch. I would love to have you. The chat's always ready to have more people. And I would love to stream, but I need you to come. We are all expecting you to come to chat. So please, don't let everyone down. Come to chat. We all expect you. All right, now seriously though, thank you for watching. Ciao.